Welcome to the console of the organ at the Madison Avenue Presbyterian Church. Normally you don't see this because the table and the pulpit chairs form a wall behind the console so that I'm able to conduct the choir and play the organ without it being a visual distraction to the congregation. The organ has 3 manuals or keyboards. They're just like piano keyboards, except that unlike the piano, when you play on a note, it sounds as long as you hold the note down. So that if I play a note, it continues to sound until I release it. And that's the major difference between playing the piano and playing the organ. Another difference is that besides the 3 keyboards for the hands, there's a keyboard for the pedals for the feet as well, on which one can play. And it's shaped and configured just like a piano keyboard. Essentially, it has the deep bass notes of the organ. Probably the speakers won't be able to pick this up, but that's already a pretty low note, but we'll just keep going on down. And that is the lowest note in all of live music. That's 16 cycles per second. But the organ also has the highest notes of any instrument. And this is a pretty high note here, but now listen carefully. Probably many of you wouldn't hear that. I can barely hear the very highest notes. But again, that's the highest pitch of any musical instrument, other than those that are produced electronically. Each of the manuals has its own group of stops, so that, and that's these things that look like doorknobs are all the different sounds that are available on a division. If you watch when I pull these out, I'll let you hear each of these. And when I put those all together, it sounds like this. Now that division has pipes that are covered by swell shades that are like Venetian blinds that are placed vertically, and I can close that down with one of these pedals down here in the middle, and you'll see what happens. Or I can open it up. And that's the way that, one of the ways in which the organ produces a crescendo and diminuendo. There are all kinds of stops that are imitative of instruments of the orchestra. For instance, here's a flute. Here's a trumpet. An English horn. A bassoon. And also string stops. There are lots of those, just as there are lots of strings in the orchestra, and they sound pretty much like orchestral strings, but these are actually just wind-blown pipes. There's an oboe. And all of these sounds combined together produce a very majestic sound. This will be sort of mezzo forte. And this will be stronger. This will be a forte. Here is full organ. This is the full power. That's a little snippet from the Saint-Saëns Third Symphony, which has a major organ part, and one of my very favorite works. One of the unique features about this organ is that it is on an elevator, and we're going to activate the elevator now, and you'll see what happens. It kind of lurches up a little bit at the beginning. Now the reason for this is that for recitals, it is wonderful to be able to see the organ being played, and so we're able to bring it up to the level of the chancel, and at that point, if we want to remove the table, we can actually roll the console out right to the top of the chancel steps. Also, if we were using this organ with orchestra, we could put it off to one side so that the organist would be able to see a conductor standing at the top of the chancel or even down in the center aisle. And we've done that on occasion. This console is brand new, about a year ago. It was built by the Chance Organ Company in Orrville, Ohio. Orrville has two major industries. One of them is the Chance Organ Company, and the other is Smucker's Jams. It replaces the console that originally came with this instrument, the instrument having been built in 1961. But the console was pretty well worn out, and the technology had become so advanced that it was really a pretty archaic relic even after just 40 years. The pipes, however, that are behind the screen, the ones that you can't see, are all from the 1961 Cassavant. And there are almost 4,000 of them altogether. We're going to show them to you a little bit later in this series, but the stops that we added as part of the renovation of the church are the pipes that you see on valances out here in front, and I'm going to play those for you. The front row over here on the right is an open diapason that sounds like this. And over here, the front row of pipes is a principal stop that sounds like this. Really the same kind of sound, but a little milder. And behind that, the great big pipes are an open diapason in the pedal. And that's the longest pipe right over here. I hope that our speakers will be able to pick that up. But when we put those three together, all of them, we get this. Sound that the 1961 instrument really lacked. And so I'm thrilled that this wonderful, rich foundation sound was able to be added to the organ, and it has really transformed it from a good organ into an absolutely thrilling organ. Ron Field has taken some videos of my playing on other occasions, and perhaps at this point we could switch to that. Between this console and the area where the pipes are is all done with the kind of technology that enables telephone lines to be able to carry many calls at the same time rather than just a single call as it used to be in the old days. The cable from the old console, the 1961 console, to the pipe chamber was about that big around. The cable for that now connects the two parts of the instrument is just like an extension cord. You'll see that I have here a television monitor, and that enables me to see what's going on in the chancel, since it's all behind my back, except for the choir. The camera for that is mounted right under the balcony at the back of the church in the center. So I can always watch the congregation and also the people who are conducting the service without having to stand up and look back over the top of the pulpit chairs. So an electrical contact connects all of this. This is like a brain that sends out impulses to the body of the instrument, which is up here where the pipes are. But all of that is just done by electrical connection. And the technology is so sophisticated that I wouldn't dare to begin to explain it to you, except that I know it works. I think now we ought to have a look inside the organ, because I think this will be particularly fascinating. And for that, I'm going to have to take off my liturgical vestments.